also struggle to, because of that struggle to like deliver like proper quality service and care that they set out to give. But in the end, I think, and I list reasons here in the agenda, but I think in the end they were able to generate revenue and turn things around and have growth at like an appropriate rate instead of the fast growth that kind of led to those issues.
Yes, I agree with that. I think that they grew so fast that by the time they realized they needed to cut back, they couldn't. So when they tried to, it just hurt the company overall. And in the end, I mean, I think, yes, it was successful. Part of me thinks that it wasn't because of how they grew. But yeah, if you're given a simple answer, then I guess yes.
Yeah, and also another thing with it, I mean, just the role of DaVita and how, I mean, RX really had to piggyback off of all of the success of that other company, because it says in the case that, I mean, all of like the legal and regulations and everything was handled by DaVita, and so it was a real struggle for them to try to generate revenue, but they did end up turning things around.
So it sounds like we're all in agreement. That makes it a lot easier. Thanks for you guys' comments. I appreciate that. I would agree with you guys too. If we were to, pick, it's very broad, like I do agree with Brock that like they did struggle a lot of the time. So like their path wasn't exactly, in the yes, but it leans towards there. So I'd have to agree. Yes, they were successful. It does ask us to read in the next part. Read page 5, paragraph 5, beginning with the two were surprised. So I'll go ahead and read that for us real quick. Page 5, paragraph 5. That's kind of a long paragraph, but I'll go ahead and read it real quick. The two were therefore surprised by, here, actually, let me share my screen too so you guys can read along with me. All right, can you guys see that? Cool. The two were therefore surprised by Theory's directive. Kent told us to stop growing and gave us 6 to 12 months to fix RX service experience. Gullum recalled RX was projected to lose between 10 million and 12 million in 2007, and a 6-month halt on growth would see this figure balloon to roughly 18 million in losses for the year. Theory expanded on his reasoning. The RX team was not being sensitive to their impact on the clinics. The effect of the core dialysis business bothered me, and that they'd emphasize growth over quality. We couldn't do this, given our long-term time frame for RX. It had to aspire to be a world-class company rather than one that could liquidate quickly. I made them stop growing until the day-to-day quality of the experience was better. Most of DaVita's top leaders wanted to shut RX down because they're reluctant to support this effort. When I told DaVita's executive team and board that RX losses were going to be much higher than projected because the service was so bad that we were stopping growth, that made the pressure to shut down even worse. Theory recalled external pressures were also rising. The critics had questioned why DaVita didn't just continue to grow in a successful dialysis business. So going from there, it's asking us, what do you think, and we already touched on this a tiny bit, but what do you think some lessons could be gained from Paladina? So, I mean, we had already talked about it a tiny bit, but lessons that Paladina could look and not make the same mistake that RX did.
Well, I think if you're comparing it to RX, I think the way they started Paladina and trying to get the company going, because they said they wanted it to be almost like its own startup, but it still had funding from the original group. Because of that, it had so many people tied into the company that while they're still trying to build up RX and whatnot, they're also trying to build up Paladina and whatever else. Anyway, I think because of that, it ended up making things really, really hard they would have just went and separated it completely and just added a whole other crew to it, I think they would have been better off.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as far as Paladina, you know, because they as well are kind of doing a lot of that support from Vita. You know, it says in the case of like how DaVita is helping like support them and being able to expand their market share. And something that I wrote about is how, you know, they should try to scale the business and not push too hard for growth, because they'll probably end up in the same position as RX. So hopefully they can learn from those mistakes and just work on scaling the business, working on their efficiencies rather than just pushing for the growth.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned other things, like just going off of like some of the mistakes that RX did make, just being able to see what they did to then grow, like scale up at appropriate rate that matches like their ventures goals, and then also just because I know Paladino was trying to be like more innovative, so investing in like more technology to be able to make things like easier and stay on top of things will be able to help them. And also that will also be able to help them like find the money and also be attractive to, I don't know, even if they're like potential investors and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm trying to go through this really quick because I know we got people that are going to be leaving soon. So assuming that Gulam does take the job, what do you think that he should do to test to make sure that the company's running well? I guess first thing that I thought of would just be like if he's looking to see if they keep up their morals and they're operating, making sure that the customer service is well. I guess he could implement some sort of like secret shopper kind of thing. I'm not sure if that's exactly what it's asking, but I think that making sure that as they grow and they scale, that they have that same level of customer service that they would as a small startup company as well. And then if you guys have anything else to put.
I agree.
Cool. All right. What results do you think would you accept as good enough? That's the follow-up question. What should he do to test them, and what results would you accept as good enough? I'm not really sure what that's asking, actually.
Was asking like because we kind of talked about things that he could do to like avoid mistakes, so like kind of, I don't know, that's what I'm kind of thinking, going along the lines of that, like at what point are those good enough, like just diving into that maybe more detail. No specific answer, but that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Let's go ahead and move on. So we're going into the second case right now. This is the one that Justin commented on in the group. So we have some of Justin's answers as well going through. But discuss as a group what it's like to be a farmer in India. Why are the conditions so terrible? One, how is Agronova trying to improve the life? Does it actually work, and is it a good idea? So I guess the first thing that comes to mind is further conditions for the farmers. I mean, they're basically doing it to survive, but they don't have any experience outside of farming, so they don't know how to read, they don't know how to write, they don't really know how to position themselves to get the best prices, and they don't even know who to sell it to. So like I feel like a lot of their business model canvas is just taken over by someone else.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things where in theory, like in the most optimal conditions, getting everybody on the same page is always a good thing, so they can communicate the prices and everything else. But clearly there were just lots of issues with the execution of it. So, I mean, yeah, it's a great idea, but it's just not effective for that part of the world because of education. It just goes into like a lot of other problems of, well, maybe if there's different education and things there, this would work. So there's just too many things it's dependent on for it to be effective.
Yeah, I agree with Brandon on that. So my family actually farms, and I think about, if I were to try to apply what they're doing there to our lives in that same situation, I feel like the people themselves have very little control, and because they have so little knowledge is the things that go on. I mean, even starting this Intuit company, because they can't read, they can't do so many of the basic functions that we can. I think it just puts them so far behind.
Yeah, I really loved this case study because I actually was able to go to India this summer and just like go to some of the rural places and like actually see some of their farms. I didn't meet farmers, but I met, other people. And one of the things the case study said, like, yes, these people like are in poverty, but they are able to, and a lot of the people do have a pretty good, like, I was able to communicate with everyone. And so, but one of the issues I can see happening is just that the crop prices are just like highly volatile and can like fluctuate like by 50% over the course of like a day and like completely change like day to day. So I feel like it would be hard. Like they mentioned that they would have to have people like in the field constantly, like these agents, like updating them on what the prices could be. And just another way for like the farmers to understand clearly. I had an idea of just like, they can understand numbers. And so like being able to just explain that like economically, like, hey, here's, what you're growing, here's the rate for the day. And then it's hard to measure like if they'll really go by that or just by, I don't know, what they've been doing, it's like a new practice. So implementing it will be like another challenge. But I thought it was a really interesting idea. And I thought it was a good idea. There's just a lot of things to like foresee and like test out before it can be like implemented like around India because there's like billions of people, right? So I probably have to go. But thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Appreciate your comments. Cool, sweet. I think she really brought us into the next part of the thing, which is what would you do differently, and have they found a product market fit? For myself, I think they have found, like their niche or niche, however you want to say it. I mean, this is a super big part of agriculture, is a super big part of India's economic infrastructure. So, I mean, they definitely hit the money there. But what they would do differently is, I think that this has a lot to do with trust. So, like, you're going to have people who, the farmers, you have to make sure that they're telling the truth. You have to have the middlemen make sure that they're telling the truth. You have to make sure that nobody's trying to screw each other over on prices, because, like, it's just people's word against another. There's not like any set data or any set people like on your team that are going out there and doing it themselves. So if I was to do something differently, I would probably, just like test it out for X amount of months, years, whatever, with your own people, and then slowly like outsource, if that makes sense. Like it's a lot of startup cost, but I think in the end it would be a more smooth transition going into it. What's your guys' opinion?
Well, I think the idea is great. I think they have found that niche in the market. I think the biggest thing they have to deal with is educating the people that the farmers that live there, and even the agents. I mean, a lot of these guys don't have very much education, and I think building that trust through that learning would go a long ways. even if it's just learning the program in and of itself. But I do think that's going to cost a lot of money. Kind of like you were saying, trying to get it built up to a point where there's trust in the system, people understand the system. A lot of people see things, as pictures instead of words. So being able to help people identify things that way because of their education levels, I just think it'll take a long time and cost a lot of money. But if they can get it, it's a great product and a great idea.
Yeah, and maybe that's something they can address, is trying to work on, instead of just pushing the product out there, pushing the text out there. Maybe they can start with trying to take the role of educators a little bit, and find ways to reach out to those farms and help them out there. I don't know. There's lots of ways that they can try to go about it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you guys. If we're going to be moving along a tiny bit, so we need a hypothesis, as well as pass-fail criteria, and then a minimum viable product to test the hypothesis. So I think we're in pretty much agreement that it's a cool product and it would be really nice, but if they don't put in the years of effort that it would take, that it's not going to be doing too well. So, and correct me guys if I'm wrong, but I think the hypothesis that I would kind of lean towards is implementing the product at what they have right now, with the app under development and people not really seeing eye to eye, not understanding exactly how to read or write. It's not going to get off the ground, and there's going to be a lot of sunk costs involved. So I guess pass-fail criteria, you can't really get a profit on something like this early on. So maybe pass is having a lot of people join, and then fail is having not a lot of people join. What's your guys' opinion?
I think that's a good start, because of the design of the product and how much it's going to cost. I think if you can get a lot of people on, I think I don't know how to quantify the money aspect, because you don't want to spend too much at the same time. If it costs a ton of money to get all these people on, how are we going to eventually counter that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. So would you say that did they talk in this one about, I can't remember, did they talk in this one about a monthly service fee for the product? They have a mentor.
They talked about either charging this is for the Intuit, right?
No, baby, sure.
Correct,
yeah. So they talked about either charging the farmers for use or on an advertising basis, but they weren't sure if they'd be able to make money advertising. So that was a big concern that they had, if farmers wouldn't pay for it.
Yeah, what did it say? Farmers are only making 45% of everything that they sold, and 30 of it was going to the sellers, and then 20 of it was going to the market or something like that. So if they sell it, they're going to have to sell it pretty cheap, because the farmers still need that little chunk too. So yeah, I think that we should just take money out of the equation on this one, kind of make it as simple as possible, and just say if they have a lot of people, cool. If they don't have a lot of people, then they failed, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's the way to go, definitely. Yeah. Also, guys, starting to drive through a canyon might lose you here. Just
Okay. Okay, I got to get going here in the next couple minutes too. So if there's anything we really need to talk about, let's get to that point. I'd hate to leave everything on you guys or on you, Caleb, because you might lose both of us.
Hey, that's all right. We'll just go ahead and skip to the last part then. Says, review the DeVita case. Assuming Golum takes the job, what should he do? What hypothesis need to be tested? What should you do to test them? What results? We already talked about that. I feel comfortable wrapping up. If you guys want to head out, I know that you guys both have stuff to do, so I'm good to finish the rest on my own.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay, perfect. All right, works for me. I can take next week.
All right,
I'll be
sounds
in
cool.
charge of that. Okay, all right, we'll see you guys.
All right, take it easy.
All right, bye.